Today's episode is sponsored by Acorns. Saving consistently is one of the best ways to achieve your financial goals, but you may not know where to start or how to invest. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals. Then it automatically invests your money for you. Go to acorns.com/FYDJ or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Paid non-client endorsement may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/FYDJ. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC. Acorns is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com. This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. Being clear about the career you want makes a big difference when you look for work. And with many of us switching careers, the answer to what you want will likely change over time. Kyle Kavas is here to talk about how to know if you're on the right career path. She's the president of Uplift Leadership. It's a nonprofit that helps people figure out who they are, what they want to do, and how to uplift others. She joins us from Portland, Oregon. Well, let's get going, Kyle. Do most people know if they're on the right career path?
It is fascinating thinking about this career journey, and we're always asking ourselves, am I on the right career path? And it's a question that's just going to come up repeatedly. Ultimately, we're looking at a few different things. Are you passionate about the work that you're doing? Are you feeling motivated? Do you feel like your skills and strengths are being utilized? Do you feel like you're performing well in your job? Are you financially comfortable? Is it a good work environment? Do you feel supported and encouraged? Do you like the company culture? So we really boil it down to job satisfaction in three different categories. One, do you like the job? Do you like the people you work with? And then, do you like the company itself, its culture, and its industry? And if all three of those things are in alignment, that's a great sign.
Well, I want to dig into each of those three categories. Before we get there, Kyle, let's talk about what can happen if you are uncertain about your career path and why people might struggle with this. If you're doing a job search and you're not clear about your career path, how can that affect your search and what happens?
It can be really tough to search for a job when you're not clear on your career path. And it's really interesting because so many people start this process when they're young and they have limited self-awareness. They don't know what they like. They don't know what they want. And beyond that, they have limited experience. They don't have a real introduction to different jobs and what it feels like to actually do those jobs. So there's this missing piece of validation. One of the number one ways to validate whether a job makes sense is to actually do the job. And we go through this process of elimination where we do the job and we either say, yes, I like this works for me, or no, it doesn't. Ultimately, this, again, lack of self-awareness and limited experience can play into it, as well as a fear of failure, this overriding sense that we need to make the right choice. And there's pressures from people in our lives, from our partners, from our parents, from our peers. There's societal and cultural expectations that can get in the way. But ultimately, if you are afraid of the consequence of making a bad choice, it's very real. So many people go into college and they pick a major and they get 2 to 3 years into it and they realize that's not what they want to do. Or they get into that first real job and it's not what they expected. So that dream job has to be able to evolve.
And if you're unclear about what you want, and you laid out some three categories that you encourage people to look at to get that clarity. Is that something that's going to happen only after college, Kyle? Or is this a question that's going to come up again and again throughout your career?
It's so common to feel uncertain, stressed, or anxious about your career choices, and it's not just at the beginning, although that first real job sets the tone. Every job that you take, you are either deciding to continue on that path and go deeper or go a completely different direction. And ultimately, these negative experiences shape us just as much as positive ones do. The struggles are heightened during times of change or transition. So, not just that high school graduation and college time, but also when you're entering the workforce. Once you get into what we call quarter life crisis, or your midlife crisis, major life events like moving or divorce might change your career circumstances. Having burnout or bad experiences, as we mentioned, can really shift. And then layoffs or job loss is not always our choice, right? We might get put into a different career path by circumstances we didn't choose. Or retirement planning, your priorities shift over time. And so this is going to be a lifelong journey. And the full picture of your career takes about 10 to 20 years before it starts to form and you start to see these patterns and themes start to emerge that make your job hunt become more clear as you go.
And for people who are dealing with these external events, there is some good news here, though, about things that, while much of life is out of your control, there are things that you can control. And you mentioned these at the top of the interview, and I want to revisit them. And there are 3 questions that you encourage people to ask themselves to determine if you're on the right career path. And let me restate those. Do you enjoy your job? Do you feel confident doing the assignments you're given? And do you get along with your boss and your coworkers? And I'd like to walk through each one, Kyle. So let's do that. That first question for figuring out if you're on the right career path is, do you know your job? And how does the answer to that help you know if you are indeed on the right career path?
With your job, there's so many different ways you can feel about it, everything from your competence level to a sense of complacency. And sometimes you're struggling in a job, it's hard to get things done, you don't know what you're doing. And that's an opportunity to really explore your options within. Can you get more training? Can you get more coaching? Are there other educational opportunities you can take on to try to learn that job? However, there's a turning point at about 90 days where if things aren't improving, it's an indication that that's perhaps not the right job for you. And whether you come to that decision or your employer comes to that decision, that's an indication that it's time to switch versus this sort of complacency that happens over time, where it's the opposite scenario. You've been in the job for a while and you feel like you've mastered it. You no longer feel challenged. You want to be promoted. You want to make more money. You're looking for that opportunity to advance. So at that point, it's a question of, does that opportunity exist within the current company or organization? And how can you make it work? Is it the right time to move up? And using sort of that background information you have to make the decision to stay or to go.
I'm glad you brought up that example of someone who is in a position for several years, and perhaps they now find themselves doing the same thing for the 3rd or 4th time. They enjoy their work, but that doesn't mean they need to, because they might be complacent or bored, that they need to change careers, does it, Kyle?
There are so many ways to kind of bring your job back to life by taking on new responsibilities, asking for more opportunities, looking for professional development opportunities, workshops, things that you can do to level up.
So look for opportunities to improve your skills. And you mentioned earlier, if you are not feeling challenged by your position, but you enjoy the work, and you can't find an opportunity inside the organization, it might be time to look elsewhere. But it is indeed not time to change careers. Is that correct?
It depends on the situation. I think we hear the advice a lot that it's worth it to move companies or move jobs every 2 years if you want to advance. And ultimately, that can be a myth for some people. There's a lot of growth opportunity that can happen within a company, and there's a ton of value in tenure and institutional knowledge and understanding how a company really works. You can make bigger, better decisions. instead of just defaulting to, hey, it's time to leave companies. If your goal is to find a new job every year, that's going to be exhausting for you and for your employer.
Well, terrific. Let's pause there and take a break. Stay with us. When we come back, Kyle Kavas will continue to share her advice on how to know if you're on the right career path.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
With supply chains becoming more complex, you need to stay on top of the latest logistics developments. So if you work with logistics, you need the Beyond the Box podcast from Maersk. It's the easy way to keep up to date with everything from digital disruption in logistics to the need for supply chain resilience in today's market. Find out more and keep ahead of the game with the Beyond the Box podcast on logistics insights at maersk.com/insights.
We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Kyle Kavas. She's the president of Uplift Leadership. It's a nonprofit that helps people figure out who they are, what they want to do, and how to uplift others. She joins us from Portland, Oregon. Now, Kyle, before the break, we were talking about how to know if you're on the right career path. And there are 3 questions you encourage listeners to ask themselves to get the answer. Again, those 3 questions are, do you enjoy your job? Do you feel competent doing the assignments you're given? And number 3 is, do you get along with your boss and your coworkers? And we talked about question number 1. Let's dive into question number 2. Do you feel competent doing the assignments you're given? Tell us more about that. And is answering no here a deal breaker? Can't everybody learn new skills, even if they're uncomfortable with an assignment at the start?
Yes, we can always learn new skills, and it's an ongoing process of trying your best until a point where you realize, is this working? Is this not working? And in many cases in the job, that period of time is decided by the employer. It's 90 days, or it could be a performance plan that's over the course of a year. In the case where you're not performing the job the way that you want to be performing the job, there's a plan in place of additional training or additional support or additional coaching from within, or looking at external professional development opportunities to improve your position, gain more knowledge so you can actually be effective at that job. And then on the flip side of that competency piece, we talked a little bit about feeling overly confident to a point of, I guess, mastery in your job. And what should you do in that moment? And there's still opportunities to advance. There is no true way to master a job, and really wondering if there's always a way we can be better, if there's always a way we can maybe add new projects to our plate or take on additional responsibilities or expand in a different direction.
What does saying yes to this question tell you about whether or not you're on the career path, if you feel competent doing these assignments? How should you interpret a yes here?
If you feel competent with your assignments, that's a good indication that you're in the right job. It means it's a chance to strengthen your skills and to kind of sharpen that sword, so to speak. Honestly, I would look at that as one of the primary motivations for job satisfaction is feeling like you're proud of the work that you're doing and that you're really making an impact.
And if you do need to learn new skills, or you find your employer giving you feedback and perhaps even putting you on a performance improvement plan, what's your best advice, Kyle, for how to deal with that? What should someone do in that situation? Does it mean it's time to change careers, or should you do something else?
A performance plan does not necessarily mean that it's time to change careers. It sounds like the company is saying they believe in you and they believe that you have the potential to rise to the challenge. So there's this instinct, I think, especially when you're younger, to take a no or not good enough as negative feedback and be dejected by it and want to leave because of it. When really the employer may be offering you the opportunity to rise to the occasion. And I would consider it actually a positive thing in some cases when you're offered the opportunity and more time and energy and resources to build the skills that are going to help you not just there, but anywhere you end up going in your career.
What's your best advice for how to deal with maybe some of the emotions getting that message? You might feel some embarrassment or unsupported. And again, you might even question whether you're on the right career path. How do you see people deal successfully in that situation with those kinds of circumstances?
It's an ongoing thing. We're always battling how we feel about the feedback we're getting externally and internally. And it's not just how we personally feel about the job, but how we feel others are perceiving us in that job. It's hard not to take it as a rejection. And ultimately, you can use rejection one of two ways. It can be defeating and deflating, or it can be motivating. It can push you to try harder. It can have you inspired to maybe look in a different direction, or maybe try to conquer the thing everyone says you can't.
Your third and final question for determining if you're on the right career path is to ask yourself if you get along with your boss and your coworkers. Does a no answer here mean it's time to change career paths? Or should you do something else?
This is one of the most common situations where you love your job and your company, but maybe you have a bad boss or maybe a tough coworker. And bad bosses are one of the primary reasons why people quit their jobs. It's incredible. Ultimately, though, it's a question of how tolerable is the situation? How tenable is the situation? Because there's a wide range of a bad boss and a bad coworker, from mildly annoying to downright abusive. So again, it's assessing the situation and seeing whether that particular person is strong enough to drive you out of a job or a company that you love. People come and go, and that boss or that difficult coworker might end up quitting, or they might get fired. You never really know what's going to happen. So if you really love the job and you really love the company, it's a situation worth, I hate to use the word tolerating, but yeah, tolerating.
So there's a job and there's a career. You can leave a company and a job and still pursue the same career. Is that an option you should consider if you find yourself in this circumstance where you have a bad boss or maybe a toxic coworker who's making your day unpleasant?
Absolutely. Never closing yourself off to an opportunity is probably smart. And you reach this point of, is it time to leave or should I stay? And one of the ways we qualify this is if you're dreading going to work or dreading doing your job 3 out of 5 days a week, that's an indication that it's time to make a change.
So again, you had 3 questions here to determine if you're on the right career path. Do you enjoy your job? Do you feel competent doing the assignments you're given? Do you get along with your boss and your coworkers? Kyle, what should you do if you answer no to one or more of these 3 questions?
There is a ton of options for you. So even if you get a no on one of these questions, it may not mean that you need to leave the company per se. But one reason you know you need to leave a company is if you feel like they're operating unethically, or you don't believe in the products or services that they offer. If you find the culture to be unwelcoming or discriminatory, or if you're being bullied, harassed, or maybe even worse, those are all reasons why you might not stick it out at a specific company.
And what if you answer yes to all 3 questions, Kyle? What does this say about the career path that you're on, and how can you use the information that you get from answering and reflecting on these questions to make the most of your current career?
All of those yeses are a really good sign and an indication that you might have found your dream job. Ultimately, if you're happy where you are, why change, right? But if you're trying to advance in that current career, don't underestimate the continued growth opportunities that are there, the mentors that are around, the guidance that you can get, not just from those role models that you see, the people who you want to emulate, but also career counselors, People often think to go to career counselors when they're transitioning from company to company or job to job, but career counselors can be helpful even if you're just looking for some self-reflection time and need some support. I am a huge advocate for building relationships and trying to deepen your connections within a company while keeping things professional, but also asking for opportunities to grow, asking for ways to make it work where you are, unless it's an unworkable situation, in which case you should leave.
Well, it's been a terrific conversation, Kyle. Now tell us, what's next for you?
In the work that we do at Uplift Leadership, we have found that young people between the ages of 16 and 26 years old need a lot of guidance and support when it comes to career path planning and building job skills. So we're excited to connect with the community about ways to support young people coming into the workforce. One of the ways we do this is through the Career Summit. And so we're really excited to serve students this summer.
Well, terrific. I know listeners can learn more about you and your work at Uplift Leadership by visiting the Uplift Leadership website. That URL is upliftleadership.org. And that you also invite listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn. And as always, when listeners do reach out to you, I hope they'll mention that they heard you on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Kyle, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about how to know if you're on the right career path?
Keep in mind that career paths can change over time, and it's natural, and it's okay to make changes if needed. Ultimately, making decisions in alignment with your goals and your values is the best course.
Next week, our guest will be Toy Jones. She's the Human Resources and Equity Director at Casa for Children in Portland, Oregon. Her organization advocates for the best interests of abused and neglected children in the custody of the state and under the protection of the court. As Kyle shared today, switching professions requires careful thought and planning. So join us next Wednesday when we dig deeper into this topic and Toy Jones shares with us 4 things you need to change careers. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton-Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry-Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Biorillo. Dawn Mole creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.